my main question was a bit different. It was that in my self inquiry, things have become started settling down more in a good way, where um, I'm starting to see kind of subtle activity and movement of the mind as layers of the ego and doing that I can just kind of relax behind and let that happen with either happen or not happen without so much of um, my identity being uh, without identifying with it. And as I do that, what's been happening is if is like as I go and do who am I kind of just relax into silence and stillness, and it's nice, but it feels like a um like a step along the way. It doesn't feel like it's like I'm uh it just feels kind of like I'm hanging out. Yeah, just hanging out in silence, and uh it doesn't feel as active or that I'm doing vichara. It feels like I'm just being relaxed and non-doing. And but I am. It does feel like it feels like there's a level of identity there. Like I am silence. It's still an ignorant identity that I'm just holding on to. Is what it feels like. So I was wondering if you could clarify how I might um, move past this or allow it to evolve more.
Yes, thank you, Sampath. Thank you. So, first of all, I like the way you're describing it because, yeah, hanging out, you're hanging out, it feels nice. It's a nice feeling. You're on a beach with some friends or something, having a okay, nice time, chill time, hanging out. That is not liberating, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying, isn't it? You're saying, yeah, it's kind of nice, but I don't feel like I'm progressing, just kind of being. First thing is don't underestimate the value of that. That's the first thing. You may not be realizing the value of hanging out. So that is valuable, okay? But by itself, it's not liberating. It's just a feeling state. The core of the teaching is to know what you are. It's a question of who am I? It's a question of my identity or identity. You said identity with silence is still identity. There's never identity with silence. Identity, well, from the point of view of the person or the mind or the ego, identity is always with the body mind.
Hmm.
It's always with the body mind. If someone says, "Oh yes, I'm now identified with silence," and it's just another identity, it's another concept. That means the identity is not with silence; it's with the body mind.
Yeah. Well, there's an experience of silence that the body mind has, right?
Yes.
And that's different, I guess, than
Well,
absolute
there's
silence.
an experience of silence, and then there's an identity with the body mind. So there's a projection that the body mind is experiencing the silence.
Mm.
You know, it's all to do with this primary false identity of thinking you're a body mind. Now, when you're not in silence, when it's very noisy, when the mind is very active, then the identity of being body mind is very strong. Very strong. When you quieten the mind, when you hang out, then the identity is still there, but it's weaker. It's not so active because you're not doing anything. You're just hanging out. There's no opposition. There's no contrast. So the identity is quite weak, you know. It's like there's an old story of immigrants when they go from one country to another, they become more. So there's who was it that was telling me about this? It, I'll just use the example of people from the Indian subcontinent because that's my background. When people move from India to the UK, sometimes they become more Indian than the Indians in India when they move to the UK. Because in India, just you're not really thinking about whether you're Indian or not. You're just hanging out. You're chilling out. Just like you're saying, you're hanging out. There's no opposition. There's no contrast. You go to the UK and suddenly there's people who are different color to you, or they do things in a different way to you, different traditions, different customs. And suddenly you feel like, I need to be Indian now. I need to cling on to my roots. I need to cling on to my identity. And you become more Indian, maybe. This is what happens to some people at least,
Mm.
than the people in India. So the identity becomes stronger. The identity as being Indian can sometimes become stronger when you move abroad because there's a contrast. Whereas when you're hanging out, the identity, you don't might even never cross your mind that you're Indian if you're living in India and everyone else is Indian. And so when you're chilling out, your identity, there's no conflict or contradiction, contrast. The identity is weaker. The identity on the body mind's weaker, but it's still there, ready to come up. But when it's weaker and quieter, you have a greater opportunity to pierce through it, discover what you actually are.
Mm.
And this is why traditionally there are two aspects of the teaching. One is to quieten the mind, which is also known as purification. And the other one is to know yourself. This is why Bhagavan says the entire teaching can be summarized in the biblical phrase, be still and know that I am God. The first part of the statement is the purification. The second part is knowledge. The knowledge is the key.
Mm.
Now, if we listen to Bhagavan's teachings, if we read his teachings, he gives us the key. He says, you don't need to renounce the whole world because you do need to renounce the world for liberation. But he says, you don't need to renounce the world for liberation. You do, by the way. But he says, you don't need to renounce the world for liberation. You just need to see what you are, know what you are. Because the attachment to the world is dependent on one thing. There are hundreds of points of attachment to the world. They all coalesce and come together, and there's one root attachment, which is the attachment or the thought, I am the body mind, the I thought, the I am the body thought, the root ignorance. If you just cut that thought, that one thought, then the whole thing collapses. And again, this is the genius of the Vedanta teaching, the genius of Bhagavan's teaching. So he says you don't need to cut the hundreds and thousands of attachments to the world. You just need to see the root of it.
Mm.
What am I? Who am I? Is what you need to ask yourself. Find out.
So is it that by, hanging out, as you said, in this kind of like peaceful, silent state, that progresses into something where there's more clarity of what that identity I'm holding on to is as it gets more subtle.
Yes. And the clarity, you get more clarity upon what you are not, but you get more clarity upon what you are. That's the
I
key.
see.
What are you? Who am I? What am I? What was there prior? What was there prior to the I thought? What is
Mm.
that place from where the I thought rises? What is prior to the I thought? So hanging out is good, but otherwise, if that's all you do, then it's just like having a nap, you know?
Right. Mm. Okay. Thank you.
There are different clues Bhagavan gives us on how to do this. The basic clue is the sense, the feeling, the sense, I. Forget all the scriptures, forget everything for now. You have a sense of I. This is a clue.
Mm.
This I is the truth, but it appears to be false because it's misunderstood or misperceived or misconstrued. The purpose of the teaching is not to be still, is not to quieten the mind, it's know yourself. When you deeply when you come to realize that nothing is going to make you happy, nothing is going to fulfill you or satisfy you, if you want to use those words, except self-knowledge. It's like realizing that you've desperately got to hear the sound of a pin dropping. What do? You quieten everything. You go, okay, everything suddenly, you really focus. You try and hear this thing. If this thing's vitally important to you, to hear the sound of a pin dropping. In the same way, if it becomes vitally important to you to know yourself, no one can sort of give this vitality to you. This is called bhakti. This is I think someone mentioned satvasana, desire to be, desire to know yourself. Jnana vasana, the vasana towards knowledge. This sense that I need to know what I am because nothing else is going to do it. You know, we can have that on the level of the mind, an intellectual conviction, but when it goes deeper, a deeper inner knowing, it's not just intellectual, on a deeper level, what am I? And that comes together with this other sense of I am that, I am. This one word, I, this sense we all have of I, is the big clue. Yes, being still will give you peace and happiness temporarily whilst you're still, but that will not lead to lasting lasting fulfillment. We need to know, what am I? Who am I? What am I? What I am, who I am. You will find that devotion to Bhagavan, invoking his presence and faith in yourself, faith in Bhagavan, his teachings, his presence, faith in yourself, your own inner ability to know this, that you know the way. These are all great aids, helps. This meeting too is helpful, but this is maybe a third order help compared to Bhagavan's presence, his teachings, and your own inner knowing. Now, third order ain't bad, you know. So do come to satsang, but prioritize what should be prioritized. The first teaching after the introductory paragraph in Who Am I basically says you are not the body, you are not the mind, you're not the world, you're not the ignorance of deep sleep, which is kind of like hanging out. You are the light of that which is beyond all of these. I. I is the great clue. This is why it's called self. Atman means self. Atman just means I. In English, we say self. Just means I. Self inquiry. We say self inquiry. It's just I inquiry. Atma vichara just means who am I? Let me find out what I am. Thank you, Sonbit, for that lovely question. And everyone who spoke, and everyone else who's here. Of course, we've gone over time. Find out who you are. That's it. I love to you all. Thank you.